Likewise, the second thought that I had when I saw that particular tweet is who could Conference USA target to possibly replace Western Kentucky? Now, Kennesaw State, they're coming to the FBS. They're going to be in Conference USA this year. Delaware starting next year. Delaware next year will be in Conference USA. So if nobody left, there's 10 teams in Conference USA, but likely Western Kentucky is leaving. So you get back to this point where you have an odd number of teams once again in your conference. So now it begs the question, okay, who could I possibly go after next that could re-injuvenate our numbers in Conference USA, but also make geographical sense? Now, Conference USA is all over the place. So when I was first researching like some of these schools that they could reach out to, there's actually quite a few schools that could, you know, feed the bill. But, I'm looking for programs that not only has had success at the FCS level, but is at least getting comparable talent acquisition at the FBS level as well. Because you're bringing in a team that's not even bringing in FBS caliber talent, it's going to take that school a while to get going. And I don't know if Conference USA has time for that. So looked at some schools that maybe would be more prepared to make that jump to the Conference USA today. And so I'm going to go from 3 to 2. There was 3 schools that I ultimately identified. One of those schools being Nicholls. Used to be called Nicholls State back in NCAA 06, but now it's the Nicholls Colonels. Nicholls Colonels, they partake in the Southland Conference, and they've been in the Southland Conference for quite some time, from 1991 to today. So they've been part of the Southland Conference from quite some time. And they're also one of the more notable programs in terms of FCS playoff appearances. They have made 7 FCS playoff appearances, 4 of those happening in the last decade. So with it being a little bit more difficult to get into the FCS playoffs with the automatic bid system, Nicholls State able to get in 7 times, particularly in a league where typically the Southland is only getting 1 bid. That's big. Also, right in the wheelhouse for some of the Conference USA teams as well. They're located right in the heart of Louisiana. And so, because of that, you have teams like, for example, like Sam Houston, UTEP, Louisiana Tech are all in the vicinity. Kennesaw State is not too far either. So, from a geographical fit standpoint, Nicholls State, I guess now Nicholls, would make some sense. They have continuity at the head coaching position at Tim Rebowe. He's been around there for almost a decade now. Plus, they are getting talent at a roughly FBS level, at least in terms of like their roster composite, right? So Nicholls could step up and compete right away at the FCS level if they wanted to do that. However, I will say that there's probably 2 more programs that would make even more sense. How about the Furman Paladins? The Furman Paladins could also make a lot of sense as well. Now, the Furman Paladins, they have been entrenched in the Southern Conference for an extremely long time. The Furman Paladins have been part of the Southern Conference, the SoCon, since 1936. That is way before World War II. So it's been a while since Furman has went ahead and sponsored a conference realignment type move. But they do have a national championship on their resume. They won the FCS national championship late in the 1980s against Georgia Southern, ironically, who's now at that FBS level. They are coming off of a conference championship, which did lead them into the playoffs. They made it to the second round, the quarterfinals of the FCS playoffs, losing in overtime to Montana. Montana, one of the top programs in the country. Furman also located in a great spot, Greenville, South Carolina, down in the South. You got Liberty in somewhat close vicinity, as well as Mid Tennessee State, Kennesaw State, FIU isn't too far either. So Furman would not have to do a significant amount of travel at all. And just like what we mentioned with Nichols, they also have an FBS caliber roster that would allow them maybe not dominate Conference USA, but they would at least be competitive in Conference USA if they choose to make the jump. That being said, it's been almost 100 years since Furman has left, so certainly questionable if they would do this. But if they had aspirations to go to that highest level of Division I football, I think Furman could particularly jump on this opportunity. And they would also be, I believe they would be the only group of 5 team in South Carolina. Well, besides Coastal Carolina, but there's not a lot of group of 5 programs in South Carolina. So there might be a market for Furman if they wanted to go about doing that. But at number 1, I think this will be the top target for Conference USA. If Western Kentucky actually does end up leaving, and that's the Eastern Kentucky Colonels. Now, this would replace that Kentucky blueprint that would be left behind by the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. And Eastern Kentucky is one of the most illustrious programs in the FCS. They have 22 playoff appearances. They have multiple national titles at the FCS level. They also have that FBS caliber roster. They could compete reasonably in Conference USA, and they would be smack dab in the middle. Now, Eastern Kentucky, while they would have to do a lot of traveling, so maybe that wouldn't help them too terribly much. They got Mid Tennessee State nearby. Liberty is not going to be too terribly far either. Got a lot of schools out in that southern part of the country that Eastern Kentucky would primarily travel to. And the conference that they're in right now is not too terribly stable, not in the slightest. You know, we see they were in the Ohio Valley for so long, but then they were part of the ASUN WAC Challenge in 21. Then they were in the ASUN completely in 2022. That's merged with the United Athletic Conference for this year. So Eastern Kentucky, they've been through a lot. They've had quite a bit going on. I think they might be tired of, if they're going to go through all of this realignment for a conference, why not get onto a bigger stage? I would argue that the Conference USA has a bigger brand than United Athletic Conference. And who's to say the United Athletic Conference would actually stand on its 10 toes long term? Because it could very well disappear. It could very well not be a long-term theme. So I think that would be your top 3 targets if the Conference USA needs to get another team from that FCS level. I think Eastern Kentucky is a top target. They would be my favorite if there were betting lines out there for this type of stuff. But Furman and also Nichols are 2 other FCS programs to keep an eye on. One more thing that I want to note, I did hear Tarleton State mentioned quite a bit when it comes down to, they could, they could be a good FBS target as well. I think they're a little bit overrated in terms of their appeal as of right now. Now, that's not to say Tarleton State would never be an FBS program. I just don't think the timing is right for them necessarily because they are just now finishing the transition process of being up to the FCS, moving up from Division II. So Tarleton State, we'll see how they handle FCS football now that they're going to be able to compete for a playoff spot here shortly. If they can maintain long-term success, over like a few years, then I'll definitely be all for it. But for Tarleton State, I don't think their time to move up is right now. At least not yet anyways.